Next, airlines and airports across Europe have been reinventing travel amid the pandemic. In some places, that's meant a check before boarding, while others require testing on arrival. In Italy, the national airline Alitalia is offering so-called COVID-free flights on one of its busiest links between Rome and Milan. Passengers are required to take a rapid blood test an hour before, and a negative result clears them then for boarding. Well, for more, let's speak to Marco Troncone. He's the CEO of Rome's Airports Group. Thanks very much for joining us here on Good Morning Europe. Can you just give me a sense of the procedures that I'd have to go through in order to get on one of these special COVID-free flights?
Yeah, the procedures are pretty simple. So passengers have to go and be tested and result negative in order to board those aircrafts 72 hours before departure, up to 72 hours before. So they can do so on their own, so they can get a test wherever they like, or they can be tested just before departure. And we put in place quite a major testing facility in the airport on site, in our long-term parking, where there is the largest drive-in testing facility in the region, and they can do so very conveniently.
How much does that cost? How much is that going to set me back if I do it at the airport?
That costs zero for the passengers. Of course, we get it started. I have to say also that the barriers to get a test are getting lower and lower in terms of access, convenience, rapidity for the result, and even cost. The cost of testing is going really, really down. But in this initial phase, the cost for passengers would be zero.
Initial phase zero, but what about in a few more weeks? How much is this going to cost? Because I know Heathrow Airport, when they were talking about it, it was a rather exorbitant, I believe, going into the hundreds of euros.
No. The average cost is going down to as little as like €5 per test. It's quite a reliable test. It allows for a swift response. So within up to maximum 30 minutes time, the passengers will get to know about their result. Therefore, actually, there's very fast progress in that respect.
Now, if I had no symptoms of coronavirus, I came and I had a test, it might not show that I had the antibodies in my system, especially if you're just in the sort of period where there is a slight period where it's hard to test for the virus. So are these tests reliable enough to say that these are truly COVID-free flights?
Yeah, of course, that's a question for health authorities. But what we know, what we learned is that in that period where there is little potential virus charge, allowing for a negative result to be allowed, that person is actually not contagious, so is harmless. This is what we know. But of course, all these are under strict and watchful health supervision.
And what is the sort of net effect? Have you seen more people getting on these flights? And also, we've seen from Heathrow Airport in the United Kingdom, it's something that they want to roll out. Would you recommend this as something for other airports to do?
Absolutely, yes. This test actually has to be put in perspective. Our goal is not to increase safety on board. We deem that traveling on board the aircraft is already very safe because of the environment you find in the airport terminals, and most importantly, for the environment that you find in the aircraft cabin. You know that the quality of air is absolutely comparable to the one of the surgery room. So traveling on a flight is already very safe. And even Rome-Milan is not actually our target. So you may wonder why we're doing that. The idea is to deploy and conceive a new model, which we may roll out once is proven to be working, appreciated by passengers, and all the operations are nice and clean, to revitalize international and intercontinental flights. But the problem is not to avoid an infection to happen on board, but to avoid infected people to travel around, which is the reason why, especially for intercontinental flights, you have very strict restrictions in place today, and quarantine is, of course, one of those. If an American wishes to come to Italy, to Rome, for a couple of weeks holiday, he may do so, he may jump on a flight. There is a flight, but he will never do so because, of course, in the moment he steps into Rome, he will have to be subject to quarantine. Yeah. The idea is to create clean corridors, 100% COVID-free, if you like. Therefore, if you have a fully clean flight, there is no reason why to apply restrictions. That's the idea.
Marco Troncone, the CEO of Rome's Airports. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme.